Georgina Downer from the Institute of Public Affairs and Ben Oquist from the Australia Institute. Good morning to you both. Let's touch on another big story of the week as we look back. And I spoke to Julie Bishop about this. I had some further reaction to Tony Abbott's speech in London. Georgina Downer, what do you make of this? It's quite a change from the former Prime Minister, from the language and the message that we heard from him when he was in office.
I think that's exactly right, Kieran. Whether you agree or disagree with what he said in London, I think a Prime Minister's legacy is what they did while in office, and Tony Abbott didn't do any of those things that he is calling for now while he was in office for two odd years. He went to the 2013 election and was elected on a commitment to cut the carbon tax, which was a good policy, very much focused on cost of living pressures, but then also advocated and implemented a direct action plan on climate change. He was the one who signed up to the RET. So you've got to look at those policies and then see. Well, you know, what was he actually doing while he was Prime Minister, and then how does that marry with those statements on Monday in London, making a speech 12,000 miles away or kilometres away. 2 years after you've been out of the job, I think is, you know, if you truly felt those things, then why didn't you implement them while you were in office?
Yeah, and it's interesting, some of the criticism, the lightweight criticism on social media and elsewhere saying, oh, this sort of analysis is anti-Abbott. It's not anti-Abbott, it's pro-consistency and pro-accountability. And, you know, he's the one who pledged Australia to the Paris target and said that Australia honours the pledges it makes. It was not words of critics that made those comments. It was Tony Abbott himself who said it. Now, Ben, I know you're critical of this government in relation to its climate approach, but it's laughable, some of the changing in message from Mr Abbott this week.
It is. It's pretty crazy stuff from Tony Abbott. He's become the new Luddite, hasn't he, wanting to tear up what's happening. We've got a renewable energy investment boom. Some $8 billion committed or under construction this year, 4,000 megawatts of power, over 4,000 jobs being created, 41 big large-scale projects. The grid is being modernised, renewables are coming down in price, and you've got this kind of railing against the future, if you like, from Tony Abbott, and it looks pretty ridiculous. But bigger picture, the problem is that it is dragging the debate that way. And we've seen some crazy stuff appear, not just from Tony Abbott this week, but from the likes of Hilmer and past productivity commissioners saying that we should rip up those targets as well.
Gary Banks.
Indeed, those figures said that we needed blackouts in Australia to teach us all a lesson, that blackouts will be good because somehow they would stop blackouts. And unfortunately, Tony Abbott is going to giving cover to these ideas that we rip up Australia's commitments and emission reduction targets. Okay. They're low targets. Big picture, the government needs to integrate climate and energy policy, because unless we integrate climate and energy policy, we won't get that reliability, we won't get that affordability, let alone drive down.
Well, Josh Frydenberg says that's what he is going to be, what his main task is about, Georgina Downer. And over the next couple of weeks, we're expecting an alternative approach to the clean energy target, one that focuses much more on dispatchable power, on reliability of the system, Georgina.
Yeah, and look, what Josh has been announcing this week, I think, is incredibly reassuring, and I hope he does continue to prioritise affordability and reliability, and he should be doing that very much before he worries about international commitments. This is about Australian prosperity and the cost of living pressures on everyday Australians, and keeping up the pressure too on the state governments to overturn some of these mad bans on coal seam gas. But even in Victoria, we have bans here on conventional gas, and it was really reassuring as well this week to see the opposition leader here in Victoria, Matthew Guy, the Liberal opposition leader, calling for a complete scrapping of the ban on conventional gas exploration here in Victoria, and he would be implementing that at the state election next year if he were elected.
Yeah, well, that's more in line with federal Labor than state Labor, isn't it, Ben Oquest? Matthew Guy's position is closer to Bill Shorten's than it is to Daniel Andrews.
I was rather taken with the words of the National Party leader in New South Wales this week, who called it out. He said, we don't have a gas supply problem. Australia is becoming one of the biggest gas producers in the world, soon to be the biggest gas exporter. We've got tons of gas, and it's a complete distraction.
Why is the gas price driving up the rest of the power price then?
Because we've linked our market to the export market. We don't have a supply problem. We do have a price problem, and that's because we've linked it to the export market. That's because we've built these $80 billion terminals in Gladstone and the...
Okay, let's clarify then, because it's being exported. So we do have a domestic supply problem. If the supply is being exported, then we do have a domestic supply problem, don't we?
But we keep increasing supply and it keeps going to exports. The problem is the export. It's not the supply in Australia. You can't triple gas supply and then keep complaining we've got a supply problem. It's the export problem. And it's a complete distraction from our energy problems. I think this is what people can't get their head around, is that renewables is now driving down prices. And having some kind of signal long-term that tells people that that is the direction we're going to move in and move in faster will drive prices down further.
But the way power prices are done, and it's a very complex arrangement, but it's by the highest power source at any given time. And unfortunately, that's been gas. Gas has been high, therefore it brings up the rest of the pricing, doesn't it?
Yeah, so let's get on to renewables, which are getting cheaper and driving down.
They can't do the whole thing.
But the problem is the renewables aren't reliable.
But renewables will do more and increasingly do more, and the faster we do it, the faster prices.
Okay, let's go to Georgina. Your reaction to that, Georgina?
What happens when the wind doesn't blow? What happens when the sun doesn't shine? I mean,
it's just such silly parroted arguments. We've got demand management.
Sorry, Ben, let's hear Georgina.
Up to 2030, killing off reliable, stable power supplies like coal-fired power, like gas-fired power, and then having a system that doesn't work when we need it. I mean, that's madness. We've got I think we should have renewables if they're cheap, but I think we need to turn off the tap on these subsidies because they are killing a reliable power system.
A modern, reliable grid will rest on renewables, demand management. Got a great report out in the Herald Sun today from the Australia Institute showing how demand response is popular with consumers. It can help take off the peaks, take down the prices. A modern grid will rely on renewables, demand management, demand storage, battery storage.
Let's hear Georgina. Sorry, Georgina, your response?
Well, yeah, look, what's popular with consumers, what's popular with Australians is that when they turn the lights on, they do go on, and that they can afford to do it when they want to do it. And we've also got to think of the impact here.
Sorry, Ben, shush, please. Georgina, finish your point.
Well, we've also got to consider here the impact on the industrial Australia. I mean, we're going to see there are manufacturers who rely on gas as an input. This isn't just about power generated by gas and the cost of that gas and the impact it has on our power price. This is also about the ability of these manufacturers to be competitive globally. And, you know, Ben's right, we have abundant gas resources in Australia, but we have crazy state government policies that don't allow the exploitation of those resources. And so a lot more pressure needs to be put on those state governments to open up those reserves. And I mean, I have to challenge Ben as well when he says, well, we don't have a gas supply problem here in Australia. I live in Victoria. The Premier here, Daniel Andrews, is investigating and probably will commit to a gas import terminal. A gas import terminal. So we're going to be importing gas in Victoria.